When I was very young, as in 5 or 6 years of age, I started to happen upon extra rooms within people's houses. They, of course, would never appear when I had adults with me, and I would find the rooms when they were preoccupied or when it was late at night and they were sleeping. When my parents or whoever came looking for me, they would never find me, not until I came back from exploring the rooms. They would always remark about how I just appeared out of nowhere and scared the shit out of them. I would always point and laugh at them, acting as if I had just pranked them. I never did tell them about my experience with the rooms. I just considered it to be something that was unique to me. These rooms, when they would appear, would usually appear in the basement or upstairs areas of whatever building I was in. They rarely would appear on the main floor, and when they did, they would usually appear in the back of large closets, hidden by clothing or what have you. Their appearance would be marked by a normal, white door. These rooms, they stopped appearing at about 11 and a half years old, and overall, the experiences never struck me as sinister in nature. They were natural to me, something that had been with me for years, and that would always find if I went looking. To me, at the time, they were just rooms. Mysterious, sure, but just rooms nonetheless. They would always be empty, and they would vary in size, from very large to tiny. Usually, they would take after the parent house or building that they spawned from, but sometimes they would be completely different. There was one experience, however, that has become more and more disturbing to me as the years have gone on. It also was one of my last experiences with the rooms, and the only time another person had been in them with me. The event started off normal. Me and my cousin, Antonio, we were having a sleepover at my grandpa's house on the eve of New Year's in '04. The daytime consisted of the usual shenanigans. We would play video games, run around outside, etc. The experience, which is the subject of this story, begins at about 2 a.m. on New Year's Day. Me and Antonio were sleeping in the living room. Well, at least he was. I was staring at the dark ceiling, not being able to fall back asleep. I remember looking at Antonio and seeing that he was asleep. I slid my legs off the couch and I stood up. I was going to go downstairs and see if the rooms would appear. I made my way to the staircase that led to the basement, and I walked down them into the darkness. When I reached the bottom doorway, I flipped on the light switch and I observed the large room before me. My grandpa's basement was particularly large, and it was stocked with boxes, extra furniture and other things. I figured the most likely place for the appearance of these rooms would be the extra bedroom. So, I made my way into the dark room and turned the lights on. I began my search. First, I looked behind the door. Nothing. I then looked into the bathroom. Normal as ever. Then, I turned my eyes to the closet. I walked over to it and flung open the door. Stepping inside, I pushed the clothing to the side. Jackpot. There before me stood a 4-panelled white door with a grey doorknob. With a smile on my face, I grabbed the knob, twisted it, and opened the door. I was met with a short hallway that led into a room with a concrete floor, reminiscent of the basement behind me. I let go of the door and I walked through the hallway into the room. This room was massive, as if I had just walked into a pole barn. My smile grew even larger. Never before had I encountered a room this large. The walls were white brick, also reminiscent of my grandpa's basement, and near the top, they were lined with windows. A gloomy, grey light came through them, as if it was overcast outside. If I looked through them, I thought, what would I see? Alas, there was no way I could do so. The room was entirely empty. The only thing inside being a doorway on the other side, leading to another room. Eagerly, I made my way over to it, anxious to see what was next. The doorway led to not another room, but to another hallway. This one was very, very long, with no doors or windows on either side. The hallway was rather dark, and at the end, I could barely see another plain, four-panelled white door with a grey doorknob. I stopped and felt for the first time in all my time exploring the rooms, uneasiness. I had never seen anything like this. The rooms would always have some kind of light source within them, whether that was windows or fluorescent lighting. There would always be something. Here, there was nothing. I pushed my uneasiness to the back of my mind and I walked into the hallway. The floor was the same concrete, while the walls were the same white brick. When I made it to the door, I stopped and examined it. It was the typical white door that I was ever familiar with. I expected that when I opened it, it would come across another room, similar to the large one, at least when it came to lighting. I grabbed the knob and opened the door, which is when I learned just how wrong I was. The room was very dark, not pitch black, but at the point where you could see the outlines of things. I saw, in the middle of the room, a column from ground to ceiling which, while high up, was not as high up as the other room. The walls were not nearly as long either, resembling more the size of my grandpa's basement. I stood there, doorknob in hand, mouth agape, staring into that room. It may seem crazy, but I was not necessarily scared at the time. I felt quite uneasy, sure, but I figured this was just a new experience. I'd never had any negative experiences with the rooms. I let go of the doorknob, and after opening the door as wide as it would go, I walked into the room. I figured that I would stop first at the column in the middle. Then I would make my way to the door, which I assumed was at the wall opposite to mine. As I made my way to the column, I tried to discern the source of the dim light. I could not tell whether it was coming from the open door behind me or from something else. When I reached the column, I ran my hand over it. It was cold concrete, not bricks this time. I could not tell from my current position what the walls were made out of. I walked over to the right side of the column and I scanned the room for any sign of the next door. I could not see anything. It seemed that this was a dead end. The uneasiness rose to the forefront of my mind. Never had I encountered a dead end before. It was at that moment I decided to leave the rooms and go back upstairs. I took a few steps back and I turned around and made my way back to the doorway. From the darkness behind me, someone said my name. "Chris," they said. I shrieked loudly and I flung around, frantically scanning the room for the source of the voice. Finally, I came upon a silhouette. "Chris," it repeated. It was Antonio's voice. "Antonio?" I said. "Yeah, it's me. I can't believe you're here as well, and that the rooms appear to you too." But, I began. "You were sleeping upstairs. How are you down here?" I was confused and frightened. As I said before, I had never encountered anyone in the rooms before. I didn't think anyone else but me could experience them. The darkness of the room we were currently in certainly did not help either. Antonio took a step forward. "I followed you down after seeing you come down." I remember taking a step back. "No," I said. "How did you get down here without me noticing?" The silhouette paused for a second and said, rather flatly, There's another entrance." "What?" I said. "Where?" The silhouette walked to the back right corner of the room and after looking down, looked back in my direction. I could see none of its features. "Right here," said Antonio, again, flatly. He then bent over, grasped onto something, and pulled open a trap door. "Come on, it's really cool. You'll never believe where it leads." As I said, the room we were in was dark, but not pitch black. This new room, the one beyond the trapdoor before me, however, was as dark as Vanta black. It seemed to be stuck in the darkness around it. "I'm not going down there. Can't you see how dark it is? Are you crazy?" The figure didn't move. "Chris, come on." "No, I'm going upstairs. I'll see you up there." I turned around and I made my way out of the room. "Chris," said the now emotionless voice. The voice was now scratchy as well as flat. I quickened my pace and reached the large room where I started and turned back to view the hallway. Whoever that was didn't follow me back. I ran across the large room and back to the closet door. Quickly, I walked through it and closed it quietly. And that was it. As you probably expect, I went upstairs. My cousin was there, still sound asleep. When he woke up, I asked him if he had been downstairs at all during the night. He said no, of course. The rest of my experiences with the rooms was simply seeing white doors every now and then, but I never went back in. Eventually, they stopped appearing altogether. Of course, they remain a mystery to me, and sometimes I wonder if they were real. But deep down, I know they were. I had visited them too many times, and I had too many vivid memories of them. I think it's safe to say that whoever was in that dark room was not my cousin.